Hey, so you're in for a very special treat. But just a little backstory before we get to the recording of Prem's class. Um, I have been thinking of ways these last couple of years about how to gather my one-to-one clients together. So I have very robust one-to-one practice, and I work with a lot of clients in a one-to-one way. And at the same time, I love the group setting, and I love bringing groups of people together to learn and accelerate the learning process. And I find that group learning it creates just such an exponential container for people to just really learn from each other. So while I love the one-to-one, I also love the group container. So I had been thinking of ways the last couple of years of how do I get my one-to-one clients together in a group setting. And for whatever reason, I just was never sure of how to do it. I considered like Facebook groups and things like that, but nothing really landed. So, as divine intelligence would have it, one of the upsides to this whole coronavirus situation that we're in is that it has required me to get more creative and more innovative, much like I'm hearing from a lot of people, a lot of business owners. People are just learning, and not even business owners, just humans. We're all learning how to adapt and navigate through this transition and find new ways to connect with each other. I think ultimately all of us are doing that, finding new ways to, you know, go about our life in these current conditions, but also a new way to connect to each other and also connect to ourselves. And so, with that being said, I thought of this idea of gathering all of my current clients and past clients together, and hosting, collaborating with different specialists and some of my favorite teachers and mentors and spiritual guides, and experts, and collaborating with them and bringing them on as guest speakers to speak to my community. And so that does two things. One, it satisfies this like craving that I've had for so many years to gather all of you together, and it also gives you an opportunity to learn from some of the people who I consider to be so just like special and important and valuable to just not my personal life but my professional life, and just really like my life on the whole. So it's cool because I feel like I'm letting you into like, I'm letting you through like a window of my life, right? That's so important to me. And so because I love you all so much, I want you to experience what I love so much. So without any further ado, I am going to introduce Prem, and then enjoy this recording. So I've known Prem for many years, and he is an incredibly wise human. And teaches, he just teaches about how to live a spiritual life and how to create a life that you feel really happy with and that you feel really empowered by. And so I've attended so many of his talks and his seminars, and anything that he does I'm a part of, because I walk away with just a wealth of wisdom when he teaches, and I take a lot of notes, and he just has so much to share. And so he was a monk for 25 years, and he shares in this class that you're about to see. And he also does teachings at my local yoga studio in Long Beach. So he was thrilled to hop on to this call, and I'm so thrilled that he said yes to this and that you get to experience this. So I hope you do enjoy, and take lots of notes, and I would love to hear your feedback, what you got out of this, right? If there's one takeaway you got from this. Okay, enjoy.
Right, so we
Thank
can
you.
just finish with Finnish story. Start with three arms. Thank you. Om Ganganapate Namaha, Gangarabhyo Namaha, Om Aim Saraswatyai Namaha, Om Namo Bhagavate Shivanandaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vishnu Devanandaya, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Harihi Om. Okay, so first of all, I want to welcome you all, and thank you so much, Stephanie, for bringing me into this beautiful gathering. I do not know know you personally, but I will certainly know you very soon. I hope you know me too. We have no barriers between us and you. Um, the idea behind our meeting was to just present some of what I normally teach. I have spent 26 years in the Shivananda organization as a monk, and I left about 6, 7 years ago to teach on my own. And so now I just um, I'm basically conducting mainly webinars, and occasionally I go and give some live teachings. So my background is quite vast in yogic terms. I teach philosophy and every form of yoga mostly, and also I wrote 2 books. One is called Empower Your Life, and the second one is called Open Your Heart to Love. And some more books are in plan. So a busy person. Um, in basically, my greatest joy is to share whatever little I know about the teachings of yoga with people like yourselves. So what we were discussing, Stephanie and me, perhaps is just to take a look a little bit at the times that we're now in and the circumstances that we're in, what the prospects of this life is. So we're going to see how we can look at our situation nowadays in a kind of a little different way, rather than to just be swamped by anxieties and worries about what the next day is going to bring. We have to perhaps begin by stating that everything in this creation takes place for a reason, and it is because in the absence of wisdom that humanity has, they do not see, first of all, what each one of the challenges can bring good to people, and also where we are aiming, where we're going to. The way I look at these modern times, I think of them as being challenging anyway. I think this situation with this coronavirus is simply have brought this into the open, is kind of amplified what's going on. And sometimes I ask my friends, okay, so do you think that the life before this coronavirus was really sustainable? I mean, it may have been enjoyable for many people, but it's certainly not sustainable for the planet, not for the individual evolution. So we needed some paradigm shift. And I think when the humanity is not able to really learn properly things progressively, evolutionary, then sometimes major shifts come, and then we're all forced to re-examine, how we live, what we think, and all that. So let us just take a look at something very interesting. For example, just by looking at the society and where we are as a humanity, what we really find is that there are lots of areas that need improvement, and a lot of the compromises have been made with the life itself, with the life force itself, with the water that we have, with the air that we have, the sky that we have, all these things. So when we look at the society, one of the biggest issues for us is the disappearance of the family structure. And I think this is where we want to bring in some new light, and to understand that the family is like the unit of the society, and that is the not just as a unit of society, but it is the very thing that nurtures each one of us, and in the family itself we nurture each other. So sometimes I like to think of the problems that we have as human beings. Everybody's working an enormous amount of hours, and for example, more than 60 hours a week. That's already a big problem. And so people don't have time for one another. They don't have time for anything. And I think Stephanie is certainly involved in trying to help you redesign your life a little bit in a way that is conducive to having abundance in life, and also to having a better future as an individual and as humanity. So considering the family, I'm just going to say something about my own observations. We have parents who are usually busy working, to sustain the whole family and to somehow and make the ends meet. And then we have the children that are kind of taken care of by somebody else, or they're simply not with parents as such. And then we have the grandparents who are most of the time non-existent, and we have families that are spread out. We have a condition which we may call a dispersion, where each family member lives in another state or another part of the world, and all of that makes it very difficult for humanity, for the family, in fact, to pull together. And so it creates a tremendous stress. It's like, for example, if you had a particular organ living outside of your system, it would be severely stressed in so many ways. So similarly, this is what we feel as individuals. For example, if you live by yourself, you know what it means. You have to make money, you have to somehow pay your bills, and then you have to cook, and you have to do your laundry, and you're doing everything for a single person. So the idea of a family structure, and that's will lead us into some spiritual principles also, is that there's a division of roles and duties, and there's a division of work. And the best way to understand this is to think of your body. So your body is like the combination of different systems, where each system, or each cell rather, works not only for its own benefit, but it works for the benefit of everybody else, meaning here of the whole body. So when you have a society where there's an exclusive focus on a single person, on a single person's survival, and disconnected from others, then you have all these other problems that we talk about: addictions and dissociation and disconnection and technological, also evolution, which kind of is in contrast with what we really need. We need nature, but because we don't have it, we will meet over Zoom, and that's okay with me, but it cannot be in excess. So we have traditionally a family is collapsed. We know that an average, for example, marriage lasts about 1.6 years in America, which is a very interesting length of time, as you can tell. So all these problems that we have normally 3 generations of people at least should live in at least close to one another, so that we have, let's say, grandparents being close to our children, helping around, and then you have some contact with your children, and then the children have some kind of, you know from somebody directly to learn that is directly related to them. All these things are known to you and to me, but somehow they seem to be getting out of hand. We're getting grandparents moving to Florida. They need a warm weather. We have children that have been taken care of by somebody else. And then we also have parents that are trying to scramble to live, to, somehow to make money. There are many other things, but I think you need to look at that life prior to this uh, situation, very serious situation we're now in. And so we have to see what is life trying to teach us. And we have to look at this also when we have individual crises, and as well as we have collective crisis. But I'm going to tell you some good news. This will definitely come to an end, so don't worry about everything. Already in about a week or two, we will start to see a little turn, and then hopefully by the end of May, we will already know that these things are kind of slightly behind us. So what we can do is try to think about the modern times with some little insight on your own. Try to meditate a little bit on it, because we are living in some of the most challenging times, and especially in the past several hundred years, and with the prospect of either causing a great destruction to the world or bringing on a great spiritual awakening and light, which is also possible. And this I would like to concentrate on this in a minute. So we see at this time that there have been many, up to this time, there have been many situations in which there was like a fight between the darkness and the light. And we are seeing that there is a contrast between very dominant materialistic view and some spiritual values. And so our humanity, in fact, is entering into a golden time of spiritual unfolding. In addition, of course, at the same time, to a great uprising in technology, robotics, and all this life that we do not necessarily want to be surrounded by, but it is a part of our growth in a sense. So what's really needed, as my teacher used to say, is that each person should create the best life that they can for themselves, meaning the best spiritual life. The spiritual life is the foundation of everything. Because if you're disconnected from the spiritual reality of who you are and I am, then the mind becomes a very powerful force to lead you totally in other domains that we eventually end up not having any control over. So if you take away the spirituality, you will have a rampant materialism, which means rampant. The idea here is that we believe the matter is the only reality. It's not the problem enjoying things occasionally for us, but the spiritualism is missing. And even though we have many people who are leading a spiritual life nowadays, which is wonderful, there's still a large number of people who are not necessarily doing much in that direction. But let it be. For now, we have to think about this. See, we're somehow in being uh, driven by this materialistic perception of things. We also realize that we don't have much time. The technology in itself accelerates things. For example, we believed a long time ago the machines will take over human work, and then the humans will have time for pastimes, for enjoyments, for nurturing different things. But it's actually contrary had taken place, and this is going on even today. So we have no time for spiritual practices as people used to have hundreds of years ago, whatever, if they wanted to do it. Many people have no time for anything. They cannot wait for vegetables to grow on time, or children to grow in time, like that. So we, since we're running out of time in a literal sense, we also do not have much time to enjoy things that we love. For example, you're able to download a lot of music on Spotify and this and that, but do you have time to listen to it? And then what kind of a quality of experience do you have? So these are just some of the things that I wanted to you know mention, because what we really want to do is to try to reconnect to nature. So the first thing I would say, make a spiritual life, meaning the practice of your postures, meditation, breathing, whatever it is that your spiritual tradition is, as a primary focus, meaning something that you want to at least begin your day with. Then the second thing is to think about the necessity of linking yourself to connecting with nature. This is number two. If we don't do that, then it's a problem. How many hours during the week we spend appreciating the beauty of nature, the sky, the sunrise, or we appreciate, the contact with another human being, the spark in their eyes, the softness of a baby's hand, like things like this that really make the life. We have lost because we do not have that sensitivity anymore, but we are going to regain it. Okay, so this is just an introduction. I wanted to say a few things about things that are not necessarily right. Now, what we need to do is, first of all, look at the situation today in a new way. So you have to challenge yourself to think about outside of the box. Everybody will worry about what's going on. There are some realistic situations and people losing lives and jobs and everything. But now, if you look at yourself, just say, okay, this is my life. What can I now do? So you can take a moment to re examine your priorities and your routines, and also try to think about what you can do to bring in some more of the flavor of true living. And in order to do that, you need to learn also to think in a way that everything that you're experiencing can be given a different quality, provided that you are able to look at that experience with a new eyes. So in the Zen teaching, this is called the beginner's mind. So for example, I look at the sky and I imagine that I'm looking at it as if I'm looking at it for the first time. Or if you have a partner or dog or cat like that or something like this, you relate to everything and everybody as if that was the very first time you were relating to them. So that will bring a new quality. It will bring a certain, joy and creativity in all your relationships. And also it will take you out of any kind of a sense of stagnation that you may find in when you're just living mechanically day after day. So I call this subject increasing sensitivity. What really has killed our sensitivity is the fact that we're doing things too much. Like, for example, if you eat too much, you will not have any proper sense of hunger, and you will not have also um, you will not be able to discriminate what is the best food for you. You will not be able to appreciate the food. So anything that we do too much is like this destroys our capacity for enjoyment also. Two people meet and they enjoy each other presence for a few months, and then they get tired of each other. Why? Because they're not seeing them anymore in the same way. They're not able to see them as if they were seeing them for the first time. Just think of it as your relationship, when you were truly in love, or if you're still in love with somebody, how each time you see the person, you discover new things about them. You feel that like a fire of, in your heart, you feel so inspired by their presence. You're thinking what you can do for them. You think of them a lot. So there are people who are on a spiritual path. They live like this day by day, hour by hour. They're inspired by things. They're they're infused by new light because they're able to live always in the present moment, and they're able to renew their contact with others. So this could be a little exercise for us, is to try to, when you wake up in the morning, don't take anybody and anything for granted. The fact that you're breathing is a very important fact. There are people today who cannot breathe, right? They're on a ventilator. So what makes us think that we cannot appreciate what makes us think that our breath is just with us all the time? So like this, you enjoy some small moments and some small actions. You do them with a greater focus, greater love, greater presence, and you're going to experience immediately the life in a different way. And what happens when we cultivate that first seeing practice? Also, we start to develop humility, which is absolutely necessary if you want to learn to read the messages that life brings. Um, the whole life is asking us to put aside a little bit of that exaggerated sense of self-importance in order to pay attention to everything else that we are interconnected with. And it simply means that if we are the most important to ourselves, we will cease to see others in the new ways, and we will not be able to learn from them, and we will not be able to love them. So this is how love ceases, when we stop seeing them in the same charming way that we saw them before. This is why you have to be creative in relationships, in your practices. Even if you do yoga every day, you have to know how to do it with a little newness added to your practice, so that when you're sitting on a yoga mat, or you're cooking, let's say, or you're doing anything like this, you imagine you're doing it for the first time. So I tend to find this practice very transformative, and I hope you can try it. You know, let's say, um, when you're listening to somebody for the first time, that person obviously is being the first time you're seeing that person for the first time is maybe interesting, but if you hear the same person again and again, you may lose that kind of a feel. It's normal for human beings to lose the sensitivity. Um, for example, if you go to Spain and let's say to Barcelona and see a beautiful cathedral, you will notice the things very specific that a person who has lived there for 30 years sees to see, because that person is not able to see things in a new way. So if you show they say, oh, look at that beautiful cathedral, and they say, look at the little golden top or something like this, they will look at it and say, oh my God, yeah, you can live this life being surrounded by people and never see them. Do you understand what this means? It's a serious condition. And this is how our societies become numb in so many ways. And this is how the nature comes and it reawakens our potential, which we all have a divine potential. All human beings, regardless on how negative they can be and problematical can be, they have there's some divine spark in them. So this is what we want to be able to bring in, something new, something fresh. We need to try to learn to care for each other, you know, and of course we care for those we love, who are the closest, who gives us the greatest pleasure. But it is more difficult to actually care for people that you do not necessarily know. So I suggest when you go into your shop or your bank teller or something, hopefully very soon, that you relate to them in a new way. You look at them as, this is my sister, this is my brother, this is somebody like that. And you will find that immediately it would be as if a new time has dawned. New new civilization has come. Unless we rekindle that sensitivity, we cannot have a new paradigm properly established. So this is my suggestion. And all the difficulties that we live in, that we face in life, they're all for good reasons. Okay, so thinking about this, if we consider uh, things to be challenges, then what is the relationship between challenges and our evolution as human beings? It's a big relationship. In fact, without the challenges, we cannot really grow. But over the time, we've been conditioned to think of challenges as something that has to be pushed aside and something that really bothers us and it's interfering with our regular life. Now, I have to say that the human intelligence works in a way that whenever something is needed, whenever there's a part of us which may be frozen, insensitive, a part of us that is not quite attuned to what's going on either within our bodies and our minds or outside, that the cosmic intelligence keeps sending small messages and bigger and bigger until if we're not able to hear it, we'll send a big message. The modern times is a big message. And that big message is sent not in retaliation, purely speaking, from nature. This will be just a very simplified way of looking at it. Every problem is designed to help us. So you have to think about how can any situation help you and work for you rather than working, as we obviously are conditioned to think, against us. So once upon a time, there was a sage who was giving some lectures, and a man came to him and he says, I would love to lead a spiritual life, but my life is just full of difficulties and problems and challenges. This is how he said. Then the sage asked him, what kind of challenges do you have? And he said, well, I got a job, I'm working so many hours, I've got a family, I got this and that. So he listed quite a few things there. And then the sage, after hearing him, he said just one simple sentence. There isn't a spiritual path outside of so-called challenges and temptations. In fact, these challenges are the spiritual path. You can have the spiritual path, which is what you do normally every day. You can eat well, exercise well, and everything. But now you have to be able to assimilate the little inconveniences or big inconveniences that they also, in a such a way that they also become part of your spiritual path. And that is requires some wisdom in life. It requires some courage. It requires that you step out of thinking like a regular person, because I think, having met Stephanie, you cannot be a regular person. You're definitely enlightened people. I can see beautiful people, and I think you're already outside of the box. I love to think of the outside. You kind of, a little bit. You can't quite think the same way that the people around you think. So there may be sometimes they look at this strange person. She likes to do this, taking care of cooking. This woman is like a vegan thing. This one is like that. So people may say all kinds of things. But the reality is that in order to be able to grow in your own way, you have to step out of your comfort zone. And that's also the box that we're all in, and the box is nothing but the paradigm. And if you want to like really break through this like paradigm, if I have to say, then you have to think by yourself, for yourself, and use your experience as your teacher. You have to remember one thing: there are many teachers in life. I am one teacher, Stefan is another teacher, but the greatest teacher in your life and in my life and anyone's life is your own experience. Please do not reject your experiences as your teachers, however painful they may have been, because sometimes that is the problem, because there's something we could not quite process. It was something that was very traumatic. Okay, so we don't need to necessarily dig into these experiences. If we're not to, we don't need to. But what we need to do is to learn to embrace our life in totality. So not just think, okay, my life is just the good things I had, I went here, I went there, but to think about the life that has given you everything you ever needed to become who you are. So why is this? Is that your own experience is so important. I'm not going to say you experience any experience. I'm going to specifically say an experience of failure. Why? Because the experience of failure is such a teacher that no other teacher can compare to. It is the teacher of all teachers. It is a failure in a certain ways. I'm sure you had at least one. I can say for myself millions. So that the failure was the experience that eventually led you to something that nobody else can lead you to. It will bring you to an understanding. It will bring you to another dimension. If you could approach your failures in this way, that would be the best thing. Please don't look at your life and say, oh my God, it was so terrible, that period of my life, that person in my life. Anyone in this life, even the people who have hurt you, were your friends, but they were just friends in disguise. They were angels in disguise. So challenges are also angels in disguise. The reason why we humans cannot think this way is because we're not able to see or project our mind into the future, and not we are able to see in the past. So what tends to happen is that we look at the life only, any single event, we're looking in isolation from the life itself. We're looking at the event as a total little entity in itself, but the reality is that all events are linked. And if this situation today we cannot understand, we can certainly understand it in a few months. And this is how it is. If you're sometimes not able to understand why that particular negative experience was in your life, is because you're not able to see far into the future. If you see far into the future, you're also going to see far into the possibilities that are within you. And that is the most important part of seeing things in a spiritual way. A spiritual life is not any other life, but it is really taking this life that is in front of you, but in a little different way, and in a more kind of in a wider way. And that's basically how I would say. See, life is an opportunity given to those who are daring. And so, if you're that person, and you are, then sometimes you have to get some kicks and bumps and this and that. Whether individually or collectively, like this is how we have to look at it. You see, every challenge is an opportunity, and you, I would advise you, you kind of engrave this in some kind of a stone in your backyard or someplace, or write it on a piece of paper. Some little sentences like this: every challenge is an opportunity, and meditate on it. Why? And you will be so surprised what you're going to discuss. In reality, nothing can ever harm you, because your true nature is something beyond this physical shape that you embody for the time being. So, like this, pick some words of wisdom and things like this, and repeat them every day. Contemplate every day on them, so that you are able to live the words that you hear, that you love, and to be able to live the words that you read. So many books we read, but we don't practice enough. And I think this is where we kind of fall short. We think by reading more, we will know more. But the reality is that by practicing more, we will know more. So gradually, we'll be able to turn all these little demons into the angels, and to turn the sharp stones into the precious diamonds. This is the idea. I'm sure each one of you has somebody who is a little difficult in life. And maybe you have a partner that is misbehaving. Maybe you have, a cat that doesn't want to eat the same food all the time. There could be all kinds of things. And so we want to look at that in kind of a way that each one of these things are friends in disguise. So they're teaching us something. For example, an irritating person can teach you many lessons. One, certainly don't be as irritating as that person. The second one, the person may teach you patience. And the only way to learn the patience is to actually be, to experience irritability from somebody else. So like this, you could, I'm sure you will come up with your many, many wonderful realizations uh, in your life. So basically, any challenges that are there, they're really there only to help you grow and strong by overcoming them. This is important. In fact, the challenges only arise in proportion to the possibilities. So I would say like this: the good muscles work only against gravity, right? How do you get strong muscles? Many people don't think that, but you have to use them against gravity. You have to lift some weights, you have to run all the time. So the gravity for us is life. So this way, if we approach the life, we can get stronger. And how will you ever get stronger? Here is another point: is to try to never use the concepts, the words that describe weakness. So use the words that have to do with strength. Remind yourself of the strength, remind other people of the strength. Continuously uh, um, live in the spirit of strength. Don't remind yourself that things are always challenge and difficulty and all that. Even though we use them for spiritual purposes, this is how it is. So now I would say I want to ask Stephanie if you have any questions and Oh, anybody wants to ask any question?
Um,
Yeah,
that was,
anything else? Yes.
yeah, Prem, that was beautiful. Thank you. I'm gonna open it up to everybody if anyone
Yeah,
wants.
think so.
Mhm. Go ahead and just unmute yourself whenever you're ready.
Anybody wants to ask any question, please feel free to just chat.
Kim,
Yeah.
Kim, did you want to ask something? No.
Kim, you have to unmute yourself if you want to.
The challenge that I'm dealing with.
Go ahead, I muted you.
Hi,
Okay.
Kim.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you, Kim? Where are you? It looks like
I'm in Long Beach on the back porch
oh, lovely. Okay, it looks
with my
like a
daughter. With my
beach.
daughter.
Hello, daughter. Hi.
How are you? So, with this situation that's going on here, I'm feeling particularly, my dad is home alone, sick for the past 10 days. He's positive, and I'm feeling, at the beginning, I was going to get a lot done around the house and cleaning this, but now, as he's been sick and home by himself, I'm so worried that I'm like, I feel like I'm paralyzed, pretty paralyzed to do anything. I just can't, I'm just so worried, and I feel like I'm just feeling not just about my dad, but everybody else who's dealing with this is just affecting me so heavily that I've become paralyzed. So I don't know how
to get out
turn
of
that
it.
around. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I leave Stephanie first to begin some little answer. She's a very wise, little, wonderful person. So you can tell what you think it should be done.
Prem, this is your show, Prem.
I know. I wanted you to be. Okay, good. Okay. Well, first of all, um, I just wanted to ask you, so your dad is not feeling well, right?
Right.
Okay, and he is older, I believe.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's by himself.
By himself. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any way you can support him, or
I've been sending him some waters and soup and things like that.
Yeah, I think there are probably quite a few people like yourselves. I think what we can do, if there is something physically that we can do to help the person, that will be, in my opinion, always the most important thing, because that will relieve any kind of a stress that we feel just by not being able to see the person, if it's possible. But you cannot physically see him, no? Because of the
No,
coronavirus, yeah?
no, I cannot. He's 30 minutes from me, but I cannot really go there. And I was trying to talk him into getting one of these tablets but he's very old school, so he wouldn't.
Okay. Well, I would say do what you can. I mean, you cannot really go beyond of physical restrictions at the moment. There are obviously wonderful things. I know a particular type of a tea that may help, and I'm happy to share the recipe with you. I got it from one of the healers who is really a wonderful person. Something that maybe that kind of a thing, just to keep somebody occupied, if you can just engage them to take care of themselves, like this, do this at 2 o'clock. I don't know how much they listen. When you say old school, usually old school don't listen to anything to the new school.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
try.
Yeah, so anyway, then you do your best, and he has his own life, his own destiny. You can only do so much. When I say so much, meaning always do a little more than you think you could do, and that way you will feel more comfortable about what you're doing. But I would say for the any kind of anxiety here that can build up around this, please have a structure to your day. This is important. Ask yourself anyway, how do I live my 24 hours? And you can, in your head, you can just think like, okay, how was before coronavirus? How is it now? And I'm sure you were busy. That's not the problem. The thing is that the structure has to have some spiritual elements. So it's extremely important that you begin your day in as positive way as you can. We cannot, in the name of the whole world situation, allow ourselves to wake up depressed and think that this is how we feel solidarity with the rest of the world. The solidarity is best practiced in increasing your own vibration, your vibratory level of your mind, which actually is a work, because we're not always in the best state of mind. So what we need to do is to kind of learn how to increase it. So some practice of yoga, obviously walking along wherever. Now, if you cannot walk out and you're just at home, just have a structure as if you were living kind of a monastic life, you know. Monks and nuns, they don't have large areas they move in, so they make their little room and perhaps the place where they, you know, live into their full time of occupation. And so what I would say is to have some time to go within, start first thing in the morning, whatever it is that we need to start our day by building ourselves up. You know, this is how life was organized according to traditional systems, where you would take first 2 hours or so of your day just to, you know, take care of your body, take care of your mind. And so I would say definitely take some time in the morning, and with your daughter you can do some little exercises, you can do a little chanting, whatever you like. I don't know what your favorites are. If you're doing any prayers, think of the prayers, the chanting is this, that has a subtle effect on the mind, and think of the mind as having its own vibration. When the vibration of the mind drops, you feel kind of low and heavy, right? And kind of inert. But when the vibration of the mind increases through singing, through dancing, through whatever you're doing, then this is how we feel happier, right? So we need to know what vibrational level is of our mind at any given moment. This is just for pure observation throughout the day. But I would say start with the structure, write the structure down. From this time to this time, we're going to do this much. And then from 10 to 12, I'm going to cook or whatever, and we're going to cook together. We're going to sing as well as when we cook, which is kind of a wonderful way to do it. Or you can practice some kind of a mindfulness as you're cooking. You can hold a piece of fruit in in your hands, and this way make an astral, or how would I say, make a connection with the fruit that it benefits you the most. There's so many little things you can do like that. And just, you know, take the advantage of having, in fact, this more time. You can, we, none of us can get out of the houses. It's like a very interesting situation, especially here in Manhattan. You can go for a little walk, but you're always terrified. Who put the hand here? What is this and that? It's like, you know,
Right.
we're
We look like
living.
we got some family that's, you know, stuck with us, stuck home with us. Or,
Yes, yes, I think so. And you know, and I think if you, the most important thing is where you may get get into some kind of depression or something like this, to have a structure, have a check-in, and have some kind of a accountability of something. Check in with Stephanie, call her every like 3 hours and say, how are you doing? And I really, I think it's important that we keep that contact with one another. Absolutely.
thank
Then,
you.
yeah, you're welcome. And then surely, like that structure in the morning perhaps should be around the postures, breathing, and meditation. This is our primary thing. Maybe some journal writing or whatever can be done also later on. And it's important to just think of it that this time will come to an end, but how different you will be, not because the time has changed you, but it's because you really decided to live this life in a different way. That would be a fundamental thing. I always tell people, regardless of difficulties, what would you, why do you want to go back to where you were? You know, why do you want to go back to the same stresses and things? Why not think, okay, well, this is an opportunity to actually diffuse my life a little bit. You know, maybe I do have to take an extra hour to cook the food. I mean, nobody cooks food here. We have in here where I live in Manhattan, we have tiny kitchens, you know. And so everybody in the whole building is banging the dishes and everything, starting to cook. And there's nowhere to put, you know, pots and everything. So it's very funny how we live here, because I know Stephanie teaches nutrition, and I think this is essential to also, like, you're more, mainly women. I think there's one gentleman here, right? Um, yes. Hi, Corin. Yeah, you're the daring one. I'm the second one daring. It's a wonderful thing. But usually women are very intuitive, and so they tend to connect with the food more through some kind of intuition rather than through, like we men like to just simply eat, and it doesn't matter what it is as long as it tastes fine. Even if it's a brick, with some kind of a butter in it, we will eat it. But for women, we have very good intuition, a perfect time to re-examine all the areas, of your food cravings and see what you can do. um, that's what I will do. So examine all these little, priorities and how you live, and hopefully some of it can be built into your new structure of the day when this passes, and it will pass very soon. Don't worry, it will come. It came very kind of all of a sudden, and it's gonna go pretty soon. Trust me. The consequences of this kind of course, situation will last for a few more months, but at least you will start to move. Once the smaller businesses start to open up, people start to move a little bit, you will be back to your real self. The secret is not to be back to the stresses and anxieties of the past. And of course, this is a perfect time for you. I guess, Stephanie, you could have a daily satsang with your friends, you know, a daily meeting, or every 2 days. Okay, I'm not going to overwhelm everyone, but have a meeting, share spiritual teachings, your insights, anything you like. What a wonderful time. This is the time where people discover the Zoom more than ever before. It's interesting. I teach in the webinars all the time, but I have a lot of people who've never been on the webinars because they think, oh, it's too much. I don't know. I may not like it. And now everybody's on the webinars, whether they like it or not. So this is good news. Okay. Any other questions? Anne Marie, how are you? Or Danielle, T1, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. This has been great.
You're welcome.
My question is, I've been looking for guidance on this because ever since everything started and, the business is closing down, jobs, everything, I have been doing my best not to live in a space of fear and rather like in a space of gratitude for my own life, because I was working 7 days a week before this, and now I'm working no days a week. And, I have time to go outside and be in nature and do yoga again and things like that. And so I've just been very grateful, and I've been open about that with the people close to me. And I've been like, wow, what a great time to be able to be home, reconnect, do all those things, not to take away from the fact that there are people sick and there is devastation. But I felt, everything you were saying, like spiritually, I think this is a starting a new time, a new era, and things like that. And I've been met with, mostly by the people closest to me, a lot of resistance on that. And that's not the way you should be looking, and everybody's telling me I'm not taking it seriously enough and things like that. So I was just kind of I've been asking for guidance on that in general, seeing what that's kind of trying to teach me, or is that a message that I'm not taking it too seriously? And yeah.
I love your questions, guys. They're really beautiful. Thanks first, Kim, for your question. And now we come to Danielle. Okay, so how much more serious can anyone take this? I mean, just think for yourself. We've all taken these things pretty seriously. It's just that some of us are not necessarily emotionally, we're not having emotional meltdowns and stuff like this. Or, everybody is serious. There's very few people in this world who are just having a great time now. But however, I think that's your advantage, that in fact you're kind of thinking in that way. And just as I said, it is an opportunity to step out of the box, and it may not be in agreement with the people around you, and that's okay, as long as you don't necessarily go into a conflict. And the whole idea is that it is very difficult for us to share our own sometimes beliefs with other people when it comes to some more critical like situations or critical points. So I wouldn't really worry about this. I would just say, no, don't worry, I'm taking everything seriously, don't worry. But I am also taking this opportunity to rebuild myself from within out, rather than what was so fun working 7 days a week. And I mean, of course, you're a young woman and you're full of energy, and it's, in a way, it's great, but we know that kind of a life is not sustainable. We really want a four day a week working week. This is my goal. Like, because you need some time to do your laundry, to rebuild your relationships with people, to find time. I don't understand how can anyone work 7 days, and I work 7 days myself. You know, it's funny because as a spiritual teacher and the webinars and all these things that I'm continuously actually working. So I'm thinking, you know what? Sunday I'm taking off. Now, of course, if Stephanie says, do you want to chat on Sunday, I will do it. But it's like that. So, have no fear. I tell you, the fear will not solve anything for us here. Being serious is what solution does the seriousness bring? Of course, you have compassion for other people. Of course, you feel for what's going on. And, we could be one of the people that are victim of this whole thing. That stays always. But, shedding more tears, which actually cannot produce anything for anybody, it just makes no sense to me. I think you can also have to remember that you contribute to the world also through the power of your thinking, the power of your feeling. It's I always give this example. You know how there's this every country has their own, what do you call it, G or something, GDO, like what is the power, what is the
Are you referring to like GDP?
GDP, yes. What is that actually translates into? I've forgotten. Sorry, my spiritual life is.
I don't know. I just know the acronyms. Anyone know?
It's
Okay.
gross domestic product.
There you go.
Okay, good. So that's basically how we measure, right? The strength of the society and everything. But what about if a grandmother can cook well, or if you can think positively for a few minutes, if you can pray for somebody? Isn't that the GDP, in my opinion, the greater than anything else? We can. This is the problem with the modern times, that everything is measured in terms of economics or pure life. That we don't want that. We want to have just both. And so, of course, healthy economics, but we want to have healthy minds. I think this is what we're aiming at. I just say, I cannot give you any other advice. I think you're just totally normal. So whatever you do, it's fine. And if people start to object because you're not dramatizing things more, there's plenty of drama, and there's maybe more than there should be. I don't know, in some areas, but I think you can only do what you can do, and the rest of it, I think we should send people's positive thoughts and things, do for them if we can something. And soon you will be back to working. Don't worry, that will all come. I know it wasn't any kind of a perfect answer, but if you need something on how to work with fear, I will be happy to send something to Stephanie and she can share with you. I have all my little teachings, but I don't want to bother you now. Just want to talk with you as people, friends. Then also, anyone else wants to say something? Samantha, how are you?
Hello, nice
Hi.
to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I'm out here in Boston, and my question actually has to do about me and my partner. So this is our first year living together, and we are learning to like know each other a lot more, especially through this pandemic. Not by choice, but we're pretty happy about it in a lot of respects. But one thing that we've noticed is that like we're both really caring people, and we really like through this pandemic, like a lot of times we're spending a lot of time together, like just like dwelling on like how can we help, what can we do to help improve the situation, what are we doing. And that's great, but the issue that I also see is that when one of us starts to go down like the negative path of that, the other one will start to mirror it, and it goes both ways. I notice I do that when he starts to go down that path, and then when I start to go down that path, he starts to go down that with me, and I'm not really sure how to break that pattern because I don't want that to keep happening.
Question. Very good question. But this is happening to all of us. I'm sure you probably know the daughter and the mom must be probably sharing some experiences like that. When you put two people together, their idiosyncrasies, their habits, everything start to eventually clash against one another, and you really never know the other person exactly unless you live with them 24 hours a day, which is a big challenge for most of us. I would say just when a person experiences the negative things, and you start to kind of mirror it, first of all, you have to kind of say, okay, listen, this is his experience for now, and this doesn't need to be mine. In fact, if I react to this, I cannot help him I pulled myself down. So the best way to do it would be to either distract him from thinking about this and say, oh, do you want to do this? Let's cook something together. So that way you're not addressing something that he would really like to talk about, but talk about in a negative way. So sometimes small distractions are very useful. We use this as a methodology in dealing with anger. For example, if somebody's angry and you tell them, but don't be angry now, that makes them even more angry. So what you can do is, instead of being angry, you can just say, okay, you soften them a little bit. You say, do you want some tea? Do you want that? It's like you work around it as if you're working with somebody who is a little bit in a vulnerable situation, and they're not able to see that because they don't think in terms of, lowered vibration of the mind or more negative like that. So sometimes you also have to vary the methods. Okay, so when you're dealing with any problem, you have to vary the methods. Sometimes the same method would not work. The distracting method doesn't work always. So sometimes you may just say, okay, well, let's just talk over it. And then when you talk over things, make sure you don't criticize them for what they're experiencing, because no person likes to be uh, denied the experience, however negative it is. They don't like to be negated, you know. So I always tell this, okay, if I'm complaining and I have this need to complain because everything irritates me, I can't get out, there's no money, there's this and that, yeah, people thinking like that way, then if you tell them don't think that way, this is not the right way to think, then it builds almost the desire to even, say more things about this. So then you can just say, okay, just be a container, without learning not to react to what they say. Just, ride with it as if it was your friend, not somebody you're just emotionally kind of connected with deeper. But like, when your friend speaks like this, you just listen to them. And that's the greatest gift of love you can give to somebody. It's just to be a listener. Don't try to change them. They don't need change. He knows what he's experiencing, and that's okay. Maybe not at this moment, but in general, he definitely knows, oh my God, I was such a bad mood yesterday. Sorry if I pulled you down. So, distracting method is one way, listening is another. And then the third one is to simply, see if you can stir his thinking in a more positive way, if it's the right time to do it. Or, we can think of something else. Just be creative, because the love for another person brings a quality that is so necessary. It's creativity. We cannot just create patterns on how everything works and kind of be assured that this is the method I'm going to use and that's how it's going to work. What I would suggest is that you just say, okay, let me start with listening, and then you will know what he really needs. Maybe he just needs to be held. There's like a crying child in an adult person too. When person complains, it's like he's crying but he's not really crying. If he could cry, that would be better. This is why women are masters, because when they cry, they release everything. They have nothing to hold back. Whereas for men, it's difficult. We don't cry, but we either get irritable or angry or complain or throw things around and never really heal it. That's just the way we do it. So um, I will send you something. For every one of you, I have a solution. So I'm going to put a little document together and I'm going to send it to Stephanie. And so we have Kim and we have Danielle, and then we have, Samantha. That's good. So
Hey,
I'm going to, hi.
Do you have time for one more question? Avery has
Yeah,
some.
of course. I have questions always. No problem.
Go ahead, Avery.
I'm actually not
sorry.
constrained in any way. I don't want to be any constraint on you. So that's not a problem. I'm actually enjoying this meeting you like this.
Go ahead, Avery.
Okay.
I
As
unmute
am
you.
I. Thanks, Steph. So I think my question is kind of a riff on some of the others that have already come through, but generally speaking, I don't like really listening to the news or tuning into like the wider current events almost. Mostly because I find that the media generally has a negative impact on me. And so my method of protecting myself is just to put up like a very firm boundary around that. So I don't own a television. Generally, even before this, I like to just sort of like be in my own head, or, you know, make use of my time in ways that I find is more productive. But even before coronavirus, I feel like people in my family and around me they tease me, but then there's always a piece of criticism about me having my head in the sand, like not being realistic and kind of being stupid in the sense of like, you can put yourself at risk if you don't know what's going on. So now with this epidemic or pandemic, I am maintaining that approach, and I am on a daily, and it's a nightly alert from Governor Cuomo, the governor of New York, so that I know like headlines of what's going on, but I don't listen to anything else. And I have been really like not engaging with anyone that I think could create anxiety in me. But I am getting some concern and criticism from my family that I'm not informing myself enough, and that I could again be putting myself at risk. But I think they're concerned that I could be now putting myself at physical risk as well if I don't really have the detailed updates, so to speak. And I just wanted to check in with you on that, and see what your take is on it.
I'll tell you one thing now. A greater power than the virus itself is the fear. You know, it's the fear that makes people get more sick than the virus itself. This is known. This is a spiritual truth. And so the important thing is to control the fear. I have to say that you're very similar to Danielle in the sense that you have your family or somebody around that, you know, they're just not happy with the level of your involvement with the situation. And I tend to be on your side, because I think the media is like totally overstressed by this, and the media has a power over human minds. We know that, quite a large one. So I think you have to do what's best for you. Like, you know that you don't need to over consume the information that is on the media. You just stick to it. And you just tell whoever is around, just say, listen, I am informed with what's going on. You see, I'll give you an example. For 26 years that I lived as a monk, and sort of continuing to live that way in a different form now, I had not always had support from my family or everybody else. In fact, they were thinking that what I was doing was the most selfish thing in the world, right? Because you're going to meditate, you're going to read your books, you're going to do blah, blah, blah. But actually, that wasn't how my life was anyway. That's what they thought I was doing. My life was a service, like really busy, and of course, some meditation, this and that. So at some point, just to give in a perspective, my uncle and several other people sent me like letters of those days, and I said, well, you know, you're giving up your religion, you're giving up your home, you're giving up your mother, you're giving up, so like, whoa, heavy duty, right? And so I said, you know, what I did, I read the letter, and at those days, I just dropped the whole idea. I didn't even want to respond it, because I can't change people. So when I used to speak to my brother and like that, I would never talk yoga. I would never talk things that I talk to you. If he wants to talk soccer, I talk soccer, no problem. I don't know much about what's going on in the soccer world, but I would like be happy to share some of his world. It was my service to him. I wasn't like compromising necessarily, but I knew that my ideas were somehow, you know, it's like, you know, sometimes spiritual people call dropouts, you know, like because they're not in the society in a normal way. And yet we are in the society, but we're mentally not exactly connected to society in the same way. So you don't need to feed on same fears as everybody does, and yet you're a normal person, you're a caring person. You can think of what can be done, but not necessarily have the, you know, the anxiety of your closest people be transmitted to you like this. I think people like to see when somebody is dramatizing stuff, you know, then they think, oh, that guy is real, he's really caring, you know. But what you're doing, I think, is the completely right thing to do. But instead of confronting them head on, this is where perhaps I can suggest something. Head on doesn't work. So if you say, this is my life, I have a right to do, I don't care what you do, like that's head on. You just say, listen, this is, I'm definitely following the news, but not that much as you do. I know what's going on. Let's talk something else. Let's talk bananas or whatever. We talk about, you know, cupcakes. There's so many wonderful things you can talk about, and they taste better than the news. So this is what I would say. Um, do not, do not first of all feel attacked by other people's views of you. That's not necessary. We cannot make everybody loves us in any loves us anyway. But if there is an opportunity for discussion, good. If it's going to turn into a head-on conflict, then just, you know, dilute it and don't worry. And I would say find the measure of how much of information you need. I don't read almost anything. Like I read, just see the numbers. I want to know if it's decreasing at some point. I want to know what's happening, of course, in New York City to some degree. But I'm done a little bit in the morning and a little bit in the evening. What else am I going to do? You know, so this is my view. I don't know if you have any other thought on this, but I would just say, don't worry, it's okay. All this is gonna end. Once this ends, they're gonna bother you for something else. You will see. They're gonna say, okay, what about this? When are you going to get married? When is it going? Job is going to? Oh, MG, as just say, you know. It's just people love to bug other people. That's just what it is. That's just that, you know. It's what it is. And what about you? I hope Avery is okay. Some answer is there.
Yes, it's nice to like sort of find a common vibration around it.
Yeah. And you know, they won't understand you in certain ways, but we will, you know. So this shows you that everybody's a different mind. You cannot fit all these minds in the same box. Everybody has their own thing, you know. I mean, I tell you, even sometimes you live with your partner or somebody, you know, you can be living in two different worlds. It's amazing. You know, it appears that you're sharing the same kind of reality, but there are crucial points, you know, where you actually may not be, you know, which is okay. The differences should not frighten us. It should actually just teach us how to live together, you know. And it's nice that people are different because we can learn from them. Sometimes you can listen to the person's complaint about you and you can find some fundamental truth about something, but not necessarily tie into that emotional like negativity that they're projecting, you know. So just be yourself and be happy. You got this Stephanie, you can kidnap her. She's the best person to have.
Thank you
Anything
very
else?
much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Should we ask any other people if they have questions or?
I think we have to wrap now. So what I'm
Okay,
gonna do, I mean, I can sit on this line for the next hour
good,
plus.
good.
So what I'll do is is it okay if I give everyone, well, tell us how to find you. If you can share your information with everyone.
Sure, I will give it to you, everything. So you can, if you send an email, you can tell them what I do and where I am. And also be free if you want to email anything and you have any specific questions, I may be able to, you know, help with something. Yeah, I'll be happy to do that,
Great.
you know. And anytime if you want us to chat like this, we can do that.
Did everybody
Just,
enjoy this?
I hope
I
so.
would love to figure out a way we can do this regularly. That'd
Where
be
is my only boy here, Corbin? Was he okay? He enjoyed it. And Jenny is there. Oh, so many people. Kate, Irene is like green background. Hello. And Anne Marie, I didn't talk to you today. Maybe another time. I'm so happy to meet you all virtually like this. You know, the life has changed for so many people. They have online dating, online studying, everything is online now. So that's fun. So Stephanie, I wish you a wonderful continuation of this beautiful program you're doing. And for you guys, you really could have not chosen. I know Stephanie was a person full of light. That's why I gave her a spiritual name, which means the light, but I don't know if she's using it enough. She's a little scared, I guess, to share it with you. But it's really, she's full of light. Life and light, LL, both things. I hope to see you again. So
Thank you.
I will step out of this if you want to chat a little bit, and then you let me know if I can be of any help. And I'll send the little things that may help you a little bit through these times to just have fun.
Thank you
Okay.
so much, Prem.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for
Bye-bye.
being here. Bye.
Bye-bye. You can continue. I'm running away. Bye-bye.
We have to go. Bye, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Wait, what is your spiritual name?
Who is that? Atma Jyoti.
Atma Jyoti.
Atma Jyoti. It means the shining self, the shining soul. Yeah, we did a whole mantra. We did a mantra initiation almost a year ago. I didn't really share publicly, but it was really special. So yeah. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Love you.
Being here. Enjoy your day.
Bye.
Hope you got value. Bye.
Thank you
so much.
My pleasure. Bye. I hope you enjoyed that class and you got value out of it. If you were present for the class, thank you so much for being there. Those of you who were able to come live, and those of you who are catching the recording, thank you for just for your presence in just receiving this. And we're going to be doing a lot more of these. Prem is going to come on and teach more classes, and I'm really looking forward to you all getting to know each other and learn from each other. Okay, so much love to you, and blessings and good health. Have a good night. Bye.